Sunset Safari.
5, 4,
For those of you who were here this morning,
1.
you were probably not surprised to see
You are live.
a few of the Birmingham boys in your screen.
Hello and welcome to everybody on the Sunset Safari. For those of you who are here this morning, you were probably not surprised to see a few of the Birmingham boys in your screen, and they've dotted out in shady patches all in front of us. There's one up ahead over there as well, and another 2 up over there along with these 2. So all 5 of them are together. Great prospects for this evening, and really looking forward to the safari with all of you. My name is Scott. I'm teamed up with VM on camera, and we've also got Jerry on the back getting some wind in her hair instead of being in the final control room. Jamie has headed out with Tebs on the other vehicle, and they are also following up on reports of some unknown lion. We're not sure who they were or who they are, that was seen on the main access road into Djuma later around midday this morning. Now to Julie and Joanne, thank you very much for your updates this morning. These lions were on the other side of the Djuma waterhole compared to where they are now, and they've now moved in a southerly direction after having a drink between the drives. And we got the message that they were on the move, and we were actually taking down a tent on the quarantine clearings that we had erected to do some tests for the coming big cat week, and we saw the lioness that was with these lions this morning pacing in a westerly direction across the clearings. We ran to go and collect the girls, well not ran, we drove to go and collect the girls who were finishing up some work in the final control room, raced back hoping to find this lioness, but don't know where she's disappeared to. So we'll probably maybe spend some time this afternoon looking for her while we wait for these boys to wake up. Other good prospects are is that a herd of buffalo was seen on Djuma today. Now, these 5 male lions really enjoy hunting buffalo, and they're incredibly good at it. So we could be fortunate enough to see one of the ultimate showdowns in the African wilderness, and that is lions hunting buffalo. Let's take a closer look. I'm just going to drive around a little bit and get you some better views. We've been waiting patiently in the shade for your arrival, but now that you're all on board, we can get you a little bit closer to the action. While we were sitting waiting, we've realized that there's a yellow-billed hornbill nesting in a tree nearby here, so we're also going to spend some time waiting for it to return. I think it's just the male that's currently feeding the female in what sounds to be some chicks that would have already hatched in a cavity in a tree nearby. So that's also some exciting prospects. I'll stop here for a moment and let VM show you these 2. It's still difficult to say exactly who's who, but some of you may be getting to grips with the slight differences, the notches and scratches on their noses is one good way of telling who's who. There's only one of them that's clearly distinguishable from the others, and he's got big black rings around his eyes. Fairly full-bellied, but could do with another meal. Now, I mentioned earlier on that they were on the other side of the Djuma waterhole camera, the northern side of it this morning, sadly out of view. But then they crossed south, had a quick drink at the puddle, and then continued up towards quarantine, where they're currently lying now. And they're almost positioned directly behind the tree that the camera is bolted onto, so the zoomies are not going to be able to see it. And Debs in Ohio was asking whether or not, so I'm just going to swivel around so VM can show you where this tree is. There it is. So Debs in Ohio was asking if it is close to the Djuma Dam cam. It certainly is, just on the wrong side of it. So as you can see from our position, the camera can't see us, and we can't see the camera. And then the little water hole where they had a drink is just up over there, roughly, just to get everyone's bearings in check. There we go. There you can see the waterhole. And this is a shady spot where they've come for a snooze. So the other three are just lying up here. It's a very hot afternoon, about 29 degrees Celsius, 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And not expecting too much movement from them, unless of course some potential prey come into the area, which certainly is possible. Well, while I reposition, I'm just going to remind you quickly about a change in safari's times. Starting tomorrow, we're going to be heading out half an hour earlier in the morning, and we are going to be cancelling the afternoon drive entirely. Only kidding, we will not be cancelling the afternoon drive. It's not changing times at all. So the afternoons are going to stay exactly as they are, and the mornings will be starting just 30 minutes earlier. And it's going to make a big difference to the experience for all of us, getting out that little half an hour earlier. The light does afford us to do that. It's already light at 5 o'clock, so it's about time we've changed. So really looking forward to that, to maximize and get in sync with the animals. This is incredible. This lion has not even flinched. Right in front of us, it's probably only about 8 or 9 meters in front of us, and it literally has not even moved a muscle. And that goes to show what a good relationship is had between animals and humans out here. One that causes very little impact on the animals' lives, and because they know we're not going to harm them, we're not going to provide them with meals, and they thankfully don't see us as a prey source, even though we could be, we are allowed to spectate and understand their lives without interfering at all. And hard to see how big they are while they're lying down like this, but their manes aren't fully developed yet. And Sean is asking, how old do we think these lions are? It's a good question, Sean, and hopefully if you keep tuned in, you'll be able to see them with their heads up and get an idea of what about a 5-year-old lion will look like. They're all in and around the 5-year mark. One is slightly older, 3 are about the same age in all likelihood, brothers, and 1 is slightly smaller, possibly a cousin. So you'll find that they were in all likelihood born to the same natal pride. Maybe 3 different lionesses gave birth over a similar period, and these 5 grew up together and are now busy establishing this territory as their own. So they're not quite, they're getting into their prime. They've come and chased 2 big males away, but aren't there just yet in terms of body size. A lion that's about 7 years old will be in its prime. And Sean, let us know where you're from, and anyone else who wants to send through questions, just let us know if you can where you're from. It's wonderful to know where all the different people are watching from in the world. And if anything interesting is happening in your hometown, please let us know. Look at this one lying on its back. Absolutely wonderful. Well, that's one seriously comfortable lion, if I've ever seen one. Interestingly enough, I've even seen them roaring whilst lying on their back, upside down like that, with a belly full of buffalo. good afternoon to Laurie, and good to have you on board with us. You're all the way in Finley, I believe. And for those of you who are new to the show, it's important to understand that we also do a few broadcasts live to television, and we do them sporadically. The next ones will be during the Big Cat Week on Nat Geo Wild channel in America, and that will be starting on the 28th of November and running until the 4th of November. So we'll be doing a total of 24 hours of live TV, and we're all looking forward to it. So spread the word. As I've said before, and I'll keep saying again, the more people that we get on board this safari experience, the more places we'll be able to take you, and the more experiences we'll be able to share. Quite a strong wind blowing this afternoon. Again, great prospects for hunting this evening. Lions prefer to hunt in windy weather because it makes their approach and their stalk difficult for their prey to hear. Their prey will naturally be a little bit more nervous than normal, but it's favorable hunting conditions, no doubt. For now though, as you can all see, it doesn't look like they're going to be doing anything anytime shortly, and I'm guessing, you're all welcome to also have a guess as to when they're going to get up. I'm guessing the earliest we're going to be seeing signs of life is around 6 or 6:30 more likely. So we've got a bit of a wait ahead of us, but we are going to probably go off and do some other things while we wait for them to recover from this little coma that they're currently in. Well, one of those things that I would like to do is go and position ourselves near the hornbill's nest. And I think it could well be a nest used by hornbills that we were aware of last year. They've got a really clever way of nesting. They find cavities in trees and then close them up with little bits of mud and excrement. So it just leaves a tiny little coin slot within which the female will be enclosed with the chicks, and the male will bring her all the food. But I'll tell you a bit more about it when we hopefully see this nest. And apologies for joking about with you all a bit earlier, saying that the afternoon safari will be cancelled. Deborah said her heart skipped a few beats, but we would never do that, and we would like to spend as much time out with you guys as possible, so fear not. We're gonna stand by near these 3 knobthorn trees in front of us. The hornbill's nesting somewhere in here. I'm not too sure exactly where, although I think I can actually. I've seen the little slot now, so I'm just gonna show you the little slot quickly, and then we'll probably send you across to Jamie. VM's already onto it with his hawk eyes. So there, just at the top of the picture, you'll see a very thin slit in the tree, and that slit has been built up with, like I say, mud and excrement, and there's a hornbill, in all likelihood just the female inside there. We were on the other side of the tree when we saw the male come back and deposit a large caterpillar in there, and there was a large squawking of excitement, and we're going to wait here for him to return. And while we're waiting here, why don't you guys head off to Jamie and give her a hand with her search for this unknown pride of lions.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and as always, welcome to the Sunset Safari. And sitting pretty much 2 kilometers from their enemies, the Birmingham boys. Maybe enemies is a bad way to put it, but we do have the Salala Pride. And unfortunately, things are not looking positive for that one young male. We're definitely missing one lion. In terms of who we've got here, we've got the 2 young males, one on the right and one in the middle, the female without the tail at the back, and then the young female on the far left. And I've done a scouring of the area. I've checked everywhere, and I don't see any sign of the other male. And I've been also checking the backs of these lions, just to see if we can see that injury that was mentioned. There's the puncture wound that's still on the back of that one male, but that's an old injury. We've seen that before. And it's not looking too serious. It looks like it's healing up nicely. And they're very peacefully situated in the shade. As I said, right up close to Gowrie Gate on Voyatella main access. Probably about maybe 2 kilometers, maybe less, from where Scott is positioned at the moment. Of course, with a big herd of buffalo, I'm sure Scott has mentioned, or the possibility of a large herd of buffalo as well. And I certainly hope that these lions are aware of the Birmingham boys' presence. I know I mentioned before hearing that they'd come into conflict, that I thought that they would be well aware of the Birmingham's presence and staying away from them, but obviously that's not quite how it happened, because they clearly did encounter them. There is no actual proof that it was the Birmingham boys responsible for it, but there were tracks everywhere, and I think it's the most likely suggestion, and the Birminghams are the most likely suspects, especially given their history in terms of terrorizing the prides around here. Nice to see that they are, at least the 4 of them are safe and sound. It's just a pity that we're in that situation where I think at this point it's likely that that young male has been killed, and he is probably somewhere still on Arathusa. If he hasn't been killed and he has been separated, it's a possibility, and it's something that, look, I was wrong about the sub-adult Nkuhuma lioness, the one remaining one. I thought that she had been killed and she was actually fine. She hung out with Junior for a while and hooked up with one of the older females and eventually ended up rejoining her pride. So it's a possibility, it's unconfirmed. But I would say, given the fact that these are young sub-adult males, they were in the region with the Birmingham boys, and that the Birmingham boys were so incredibly vocal that morning, I think it is a possibility that that male has been killed. In fact, I think it's more than likely. A very sad situation if we look back to when we first saw this group. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to try and loop us around. Unfortunately, we will be in the sun a little bit, but I want to try and get a nice view of their faces so that we can have a look at them. Absolutely fast asleep at the moment, and Michael's daughter Audrey, now Audrey is 3 years old. Audrey, you want to know what I think lions dream about when they're asleep, and I'm going to actually reposition so we can have a look at their faces while we talk about this, because they definitely do dream, Audrey. They dream just like you and I would. Hello, guys. And if we can have a look at the male lying in the middle there for Audrey, he is absolutely fast asleep. Audrey, I think lions dream about chasing animals, and maybe sometimes they dream about playing with each other. You can see the ear twitching against the fly. That is what I think lions dream about. I think they dream about the experiences that they have. But maybe, who knows, Audrey? Maybe they watch birds flying and dream about flying just like we do. Maybe they dream about being able to climb trees. I'm not sure what's happening in their heads, but that's what I think. They're looking very contented either way. I don't know. Audrey, what do you think lions dream about? I'm going to put the question out to the audience as well. What do you all think that lions are dreaming about on these hot, hot days where they sit and sleep in the sun for hours at a time? What's going on in their brains? And if you are new to Safari Live and you want to know how to send those answers through to us, or any questions that you might have, you can do it on #Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Now, at the moment, these lions these males at least, are fairly tiny. Ooh, rolling over. But I know that we have a question from Sandy in Indiana. So Sandy, you wanted to know, how big is a lion's front paw? And I'm assuming we're talking male lion here. Let's ignore these little guys for a while because they're still pipsqueaks. If we look at the size, we went out earlier and we had a look at those Birmingham boys, and in particular the feet of the oldest male, Blondie. And I would estimate that even with both hands together, I probably would struggle to circle his paw. It's probably somewhere in that kind of region of size. Absolutely enormous and incredibly powerful forearms, thick forearms for using those big paws as weapons. Females are slightly smaller, so fly to the mouth. That was an unnecessary part of my afternoon meal that I really did not need, but it's okay, it's extra protein. If we look at the male lion's paw, if his feet are about this big, females is probably about this big. So quite a considerable size distance. Oh look, the fly survived. Flying, I'm going to send it on its way now, excuse me. Much as I enjoyed eating you. So yes, Sandy, really large feet. You can have a look at these young boys. They're a little bit smaller. We've got this one boy cuddling mom. And there's that enormous front left foot. And even at this age, they're quite big. What I'll do for you, Sandy, if you keep watching, at some point when we shift around and we leave these lions, we will look for their tracks, and I'll give you a bit of a demonstration on the track itself. Now one of them, and I'm not sure which one of them, is snoring. I can hear snoring. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pick it up over the wind, but I'm just going to sit quietly for the moment. Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit too windy and a little bit too faint a sound. It's like the purring that we hear from them sometimes, but just a little bit softer. One of them, I'm not sure who the culprit is definitely having a snore. And I know that many of you are responding already to our question about what do lions dream about whilst lying snoring away during the afternoon. And Alex and Kathleen and many, many others are suggesting that lions dream about their next meal, and I'm fairly certain that is the case. I think they dream about catching their next meal as well. Would be interesting to know though. I wonder if they ever have nightmares. Mercedes is heard or read about the fact that lions, if we look throughout Africa, are listed as vulnerable. You're wondering if by 2020 there's a chance that we could lose them as a species. It's a very sad fact that whilst we're within South Africa, we have a lot of lions. We have plenty of lions, and they've been very well protected and for the most part very well managed in terms of their genetics and breeding. But further north into Africa, and I'm talking sort of around Central Africa, those areas, even within Mozambique and around that side, they have been very, now there's a fly up my nose, they're just targeting face at the moment, going for the moisture. There has been an incredible decline in lion numbers, and unless that situation is remedied, we could see a serious threat to the population. Now, it's something that I think sometimes happens within the sort of general attitude of South Africans. I'm not saying it's something shared by conservationists, but as a country, I've often spoken to people who've suggested that it doesn't really matter if the lions are killed further north. Not doesn't matter, but at least we're protecting our own. But it's really important to remember that poaching is a Africa-wide problem, and that once lions are depleted in one country, they're going to come for them here, in exactly the same way as what has happened with other animal species that we do have in this area. It's a difficult one. I don't think we need to be too distressed about it. I think that South African lions at least are going to be well protected, and a lot of the African countries are slowly coming out of the situation of turmoil that they were in at the time. And I know that I spoke a little bit about the civil war in Mozambique and the effect that it had on the elephants, and it did have an effect on the lions as well, and that was part of what I was learning about in terms of the recovery of Gorongosa and the reintroduction of lions in that area. So there's a lot of stories of hope. There are animals that are used in different traditional medicine treatments, obviously without any cause. There's a lot of superstition attached to them. Mary, you've actually asked a question that I've been thinking about and trying to work out, although it has been fairly tricky the way that these lions are positioned at the moment. Now, when I first saw these lions, and for the times that they were seen afterwards, there was one young male with a very serious injury. I'm not talking about the puncture wound that the male that we're looking at currently has. There was a male with quite a deep injury to his back, I think it was his back left hip, around his rump. Deep gash that we suspected had been caused by an encounter with the Matimba males. Mary, I'm not sure if that's the one that's missing. I can't tell because the one male has made it fairly difficult. At least we know that we've got both females. We've got the young female here. And of course that one without the tail is instantly recognizable. But I'm going to have to wait until these lions shift around. And I think that's going to happen fairly soon, because if we have a look at the male at the back, with his chin up in the air, he's in full sunlight. Now he's the one that I can't determine if he has an injury or not because of the way that he's lying. But if he does get up and move into the shade soon, then we should be able to see if he's got that injury. My suspicion, Mary, you can see already his breath is quickening. He's hot. He's too warm. He's going to want to move very soon. My suspicion, though, for Mary and the other viewers, is that it is that lion with that injury. He automatically jumps to the top of the vulnerable list because of being slowed down ever so slightly. We'll just have to wait and see. Wait for that particular lion to move. I do feel for these young boys. It's not a nice age to have been caught right in the middle of two pride takeovers, essentially. They were evicted by the Matimbas and ran straight into the Birminghams. And talking about prides that have fallen victim to those Birmingham boys, Sandra, who's watching us all the way from Iowa. Sandra, you were wondering if we have any update on the injured Nkuhuma lioness. Last time I saw them, they were all looking absolutely fine. The one lioness had a bit of a limp, but nothing too serious. It is phenomenal. That was about a week ago, by the way, Sandra, in case you weren't watching that particular update. But it's been absolutely interesting to see how resilient the animals are. They really are quite phenomenal creatures. You know, some of the injuries that we see, we actually think that this animal's going to die. And then all of a sudden, they seem to have healed incredibly quickly. They're resilient against infection, and they are capable of hunting and running as fast as they are, or almost as fast as they are on 4 legs as they can with 3. It's interesting to see. Oh, the sun is very bright this afternoon. It's just tucking themselves in. I'm hoping they're going to move fairly soon, and we can have an opportunity to get to see if there's any kind of injury on the back hip. Oh, here we go. Female's going to lift herself up. Yep, definitely the Salala lioness. No mistaking that girl. I think it was getting a little bit hot for her too, being cuddled by the young male, making her a little bit uncomfortable. It's something I still can't get used to, seeing a lion without a tail. She's beautiful. I mean, look at her. It's just that sudden surprise. It takes a while to get used to. If we go across in a journey, there's a male that I think might be the injured one, but I don't know until he rolls over. This one is looking absolutely fine, apart from a bit of a puncture wound. They all look a bit hungry to me. I think they could do with a solid meal. They've probably been running scared for a few days since that buffalo and not stopping to hunt or kill. Even that female's looking a bit like she could use a meal. We'll wait and see what happens with those buffalo. I really hope, though, that they don't throw caution to the wind in interests of feeding and forget to look out for the Birmingham boys. I think, though, that is not a mistake that they're going to make anytime soon. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and of course both Scott and myself will be dividing our attention between the two prides so that we can spend as much time as possible with them. I'm going to suggest or put it to you guys that when we're done here with them, that perhaps we leave them and go and search for other things and then return back this afternoon as it starts to get a little bit cooler and a little bit darker. But we'll stay with them for a little bit longer. I want to see if that male moves, and maybe he can tell us whether or not he is the injured male. Maybe we can see, he's not going to tell us, but maybe we can see whether or not he is the injured male. Interesting. Take lots of screenshots if you can, especially of whisker spot patterns. We really are building up a database of different looking lions. as I said, they ran from the Matimbas straight into the clutches, as it were, of the Birmingham boys. And Sarah, you've asked a very interesting question. Sarah is watching us from Ohio. You want to know if they were attacked by the Birmingham boys. Feet in the air. Oh, shame. She looks unimpressed with the fact that her sleep was just disrupted. So, Sarah, you were wondering if the Birmingham boys have attacked them, which I think it's safe to say they have, why would they stick around this area? Why wouldn't, since they fled from the Matimbas, why would they not have left? And the answer, I think, is because they're between a rock and a hard place. It's not that easy to find a safe place to run away to. And for the most part, lions like to move in familiar areas where they know where the game trails are, they know where the water is, they know where the animals might be. It's just that little bit easier for them. Now, they could run off to the west and run into a different group of male lions. They could run to the east and run into others. There's not much in the way of unoccupied territory here. They could try and escape to the north and into Manuleti, only to encounter the Salati males, or indeed the other half of the Matimba coalition up to the north there. I think it's just because they're trying to find a way to just find a safe place that is still a little bit familiar to them. And for the females, bear in mind that the females will have left that area only to protect the subadult males in this case. And I'm sure that they will be hoping to return back to their natal range, so where they were born, once those subadults have reached maturity. Because that is the way that lionesses operate. For generations, they guard one area and one family line. We seem to be having an afternoon of carpets of cats. Let's head across to Scott with his Birmingham boys, and I will be back with you and my Salalas in just a few moments.
So, interesting stuff with Jamie and the Salala Pride. It'll be interesting to see where they head this evening. Tricky situation they're in. I'm not envious of any of the members of that pride. Absolute turmoil in their lives. Anyway, there's a happier story that's unfolding just in this tree up to the left of us here. So we're going to show you exactly what's going on. For those of you who may have just joined the safari, there's a hornbill's nest up in a small cavity of the tree here. And as VM zooms in, you'll notice a very small slit within that cavity. And inside there is, I'm almost certain, one female hornbill and either eggs or small chicks that would have already hatched. Hard to tell because we can't see inside there, but there was quite a commotion when the male has returned to feed the mother or those chicks inside there. And it's only happened twice in the 40 minutes that we've been here, so he's not having the most successful afternoon hunting, and I'm hoping it won't be too long before he returns. The last time he came back, he was just too quick for us to get you onto the vehicle, and you were busy discussing the interesting ongoings with the Salala Pride and Jamie. We are also with some lion, for those of you who have just joined, and they're just over my right shoulder here. Two males are in this patch of shade. They're the Birmingham coalition. Fast asleep. And very peaceful for now. I'm hoping their mood and temperament will change as the evening cools down. like I said earlier, certainly good prospects for hunting. It's a windy afternoon and the wind's currently blowing away from us, but even if it was blowing towards us, Chris, in Arizona, we wouldn't really be able to smell the lions. They don't have a very distinctive smell, at least to my nostrils they don't. And it's uncommon that you drive along and then stop and be able to smell lions. Their dung is different. Their dung is incredibly smelly, so you'd be able to smell that. But lions themselves have got obviously a very faint scent that I'm not used to, or I don't have the ability to pick up, and I don't know any guides that can actually smell lions. So they're not too smelly, unlike wild dog, who smell like kind of wet blankets with a coating of Parmesan cheese, possibly. Not the best smell, the wild dogs. But other than that, most of the animals aren't too smelly, unless, of course, it's an elephant bull in must. That's a very distinctive, sweet, pungent smell that you could pick up on. Other than that, I'm trying to think of any other high-profile animals that may be smelly, but can't think of any for now. Now, I don't want to reposition, but I do want to show you where these other lions are. I want to stay in this spot in the hope that we could show you this hornbill returning with some prey to feed his family. But we can show you where the other lions are. So it's a coalition of 5 males of all very similar ages, around 5. And there you can see 2. And then just off to their left, there's the 5th and final member. And not uncommon for them to kind of split up a little bit as they snooze during the day, but sometimes they can be literally carpeted one on top of the other. Cape turtle doves are calling furiously behind us. And also a few beautiful clouds out to the south, some cirrus clouds. Now, we've just got a question through. I think it's from Mischian. And with all of the action unfolding with the different prides of lions, we are actually not entirely sure what's happening, as are a lot of you not entirely sure. So we've been asked to kind of give an overview of what's going on, and we can start with these 5 males here. They've come into this area after having left the area. They were here this time last year, but then they were young, flying below the radar, not really interested in acquiring a territory. Over the winter months we didn't see them, probably for 7 or 8 months. They went far north, about 20 miles away from us, into the Manyeleti Reserve, before returning a few months ago. Now when they returned with a very different mentality to when they left, and they came in and chased the 2 dominant males, the Matumba males, south, still in the Sabi Sands, but they've moved quite far south and they've established themselves there. In establishing themselves there, they've chased the Salala pride and split it up into the northern parts of the Sabi Sands where we are now. So those lions you were viewing just now with Jamie are a result of these lions arriving here, chasing other males further south, and it's kind of gone full circle and they've ended up here where the dominant males that chased them away used to be. So I'm not sure if this is still making sense, but it should be. And it's probable that this pride of lions, the Salala pride, which is supposed to have 3 lioness and 3 young males, which now has a male missing, it sounds like, that missing male could have been killed by these males, and the other 2 in all likelihood are going to see the same fate. No guarantees yet, there's no carcass that's been found, but there is speculation that he is already dead. Let's hope that's not the case. There's also the Styx pride, 3 groups of 2, they also split up, one of which could have been the lioness that was with these lions this morning. The Inkuhuma pride, still 6 members strong, again moving in this general area, but also doing kind of strange movements where they'll all of a sudden go much further away than they usually would before returning. I haven't seen them for quite some time now, all 6 of them together. So a lot of unknown. Who else is there? So we've mentioned the Salalas, the Inkuhumas, those are the 2 kind of bigger prides. Then there's the Styx lioness that are all kind of fragmented into 3 groups of 2, or at least that's the last we saw of them. The Birmingham coalition of 5. And that's about all for now. But what we could expect to see is a return of bigger dominant male lions, possibly the Majinga lions, possibly the Matimbas, or who knows, maybe the Salati males from the north in the Manyaleti, as well as another kind of satellite pride called the Shimungwe pride, which has also fleed from the south and western sections of the Sabi Sands into this area. So a lot of turmoil throughout the Sabi Sands with regards to the lions, and we're doing our best to keep our finger on the pulse. The tricky thing is, even though with so many people driving around here on a daily basis, a lot goes on when we are not out, and therefore big chunks of the story are missing or unknown, and it's just possible theories that people put forward. So there's always going to be unknown, but we're certainly going to do our best to keep our finger on the pulse. Well, I hope this hornbill hasn't been eaten by something, because he's been gone for quite some time now. 2 caterpillars in 45 minutes is not the most successful afternoon hunting, and we certainly wouldn't have missed him returning. Big bird. And something interesting that happens with these hornbills, we're going to have to return to this hole another day, because I'd like to go out and search for this herd of buffalo and try and work out where they are. And thanks to Lynn for reminding me of this interesting fact. The female hornbill, who's encased within that cavity, will do a full feather molt while she's in there during the incubation and the initial raising of the fledged chicks, and then she'll be able to break out with her brand new feathers after a full makeover, and then be able to aid. Oh, isn't this cute? Not normal to consider cuteness with large male lions, but it does happen from time to time. Incredibly affectionate. As I was saying, the female will then break out and help the male to gather enough food to raise the chicks with their growing appetites. And that all happens in just over a month. Incubation to fledging will be just over a month in total. Okay, lions, we're going to go and look for your dinner. Sadly, we will not be able to bring you any takeaway, but we will come back and at least have some information as to what's going on with the herd of buffalo. They were seen about 3/4 of a mile away from here, not far at all, in a westerly direction, straight in the direction we're going to be heading in. And the little waterhole where these lions drank earlier is the closest source of water to where those buffalo were. And buffalo like to drink twice a day if they can, so who knows? Maybe they will be approaching here for an evening sundowner. Afternoon to, I think it's Ernie and Vernie. Sorry, not Ernie, Vernie. You were with us on the Sunrise Safari, so you're getting a lot of safari action today, which is great. And Vernie's wondering if it's safe to say that this Birmingham coalition of lions have established this as a territory. And for now, yes, Vernie, 100%. I think they have become rightful owners of Djuma and surrounding areas, with surprisingly little resistance from the Matimba males. So we'll see how long it lasts. There could well be another coalition that comes in from the north or from the Kruger that we maybe never even heard of. to ruffle their feathers, or even maybe the Majingalan coalition, which is an older coalition but still quite large in number. I think there's still about 4 or 5 of them. So anything is possible, but for now they are the rightful owners of this territory, and there's been very little resistance to them coming here, or at least that we've seen. I think it's just some elephant dung, but I'm just going to go back and check, because it could be a predator lying down. Just through to our right, that's a pile of elephant dung just on the other side of the road, and I thought it could have been the body of a lion sleeping in the shade. So that's what got me excited. I think it's elephant dung, or is it a small termite mound? It's a small termite mound. So 2 errors there. And Sean, thanks for letting us know where you're from in Secunda. And Sean's managed to slip in another question whilst letting us know where he's from. And you'd like to know, how big is the average territory size for lions? Well, for a coalition of 5 big males like the Birmingham boys, it could be as big as 15 square kilometers, maybe even bigger than that. A lot does depend on the area. But in the Sabi Sands, where we are now, I'll say a good-sized male lion territory would be 15 to 20, or let me do it in miles rather, which is generally a bit better known. About 10 square miles, maybe 10 to 15 square miles would be your average territory for males, and females about a quarter the size of that, to about a half the size of that. But again, it's always going to be a shifting flux. It's never going to be a concrete set territory, and there's always going to be overlap of territories. Lions and leopards will defend the core of their territory quite ferociously, but anything outside of that core, and the core could be very small, maybe a square kilometer or a square mile or 2, anything outside of that would generally not be fought over too ferociously. Otherwise, lions would simply be fighting with one another permanently. And what's also important to remember is that it will always shift and be moving. But large areas, and that's why the bottom line is the reason why we can't see lions as often as we'd like to is simply because they're not on the property. Djuma is a very small portion of the Sabi Sands, and they're often not around here. Look at this beautiful big Inyala bull. Oh, he got a little bit of a fright there. I'm not sure what that was that spooked him, but in this windy weather they will be a little bit more cautious than normal. You can see the little ivory tips on the top of his horns, indicative of a big male. The younger males will lack those ivory tips. Now, interestingly, Inyala are usually browsers that feed on leaves, but at this time of the year, especially because there's a bit of a drought going on, they will be a bit more versatile. He could still be feeding on leaves and small little saplings, but this year's produce, freshly germinated. Well, he could even be feeding on a little bit of the fresh green grass. And don't be surprised by the general green coloration that you see around us. It is abnormally dry, and we are experiencing a drought, although it's not too severe just yet. And to put things in perspective, when I arrived this time last year, the Djuma Dam or Waterhole was full. There were even hippos living in it. Now it is bone dry. So that gives you a good idea of how different it is to normal. And one thing it does mean is it's going to make for some interesting game viewing. It's going to be a predator-friendly year with lots of weakening herbivores, and that doesn't happen very often. It's a time for the predators to cash in and make the most of a bounty, which will not always be the case. We're going to send you back to Jamie as we continue in search of any buffalo, and we'll keep you updated if we do find anything along the way.
Well, I did reposition just so that we could have a look at the one who was lying down. And I think it was Mary who asked about it, and I'm sure many of the other viewers were wondering. The missing male is definitely the one with the injury across his back left hip that we've been seeing over the last few days. So he is the one that has disappeared from this group and probably most likely been killed by the Birmingham boys. It's a really sad situation. I was really, really rooting for that particular male, but unfortunately I think that he has been the one caught and taken victim. They're all looking a little bit the worse for the wear. Their hip bones are starting to stick out. They've all got injuries along their backs and legs, and they're looking very hungry. And obviously that comes from a combination of stress and the fact that they won't have had time to hunt. Shame. I was holding thumbs for these young males. I was hoping that they were all going to come out of this fairly unscathed, but that doesn't seem to have been the case. We never know though. Maybe he's out there somewhere. Females are looking okay. We just have a look at our tailless lioness. She's got a piece missing out of her leg. Not too deep, it's not a deep injury. In fact, oh, come on girl, that wasn't very nice. I'm talking about the outside of her back left leg. There's a little bit of a raw patch and a place where some fur has been scraped away. I'm not sure if that's an old injury. There doesn't look like there's any fresh blood or anything like that. But she's also definitely been in the wars. Now, I would say it's most likely that at least the 3 young males are her sub-adults, so they were her cubs at some point, and she fled, leading them away from the Matimbas, and probably fought very bravely in the defense of that one male. Her neck is looking a little bit scruffy, but other than that, she seems to be fine. I'd say she's probably in the best condition of the group of them. Sandy raised a very interesting question. We were talking about Sarah's question about whether or not, why it is that the Salalas have stayed in this area, and I was chatting about the fact that they really don't have places to run to. But Sandy raises an interesting point as to who the father of the young males might be. And honestly, Sandy, I'm not too sure. I originally thought it was the Majingalani males, in which case this pride could be safe within their territory. But I'm not too sure exactly if that is the case, or if the Matimbas have pushed the Majingilans out completely to the point that they've moved their territory off into the west. Because we don't get to that area too much, I'm not too sure about that. I think it is the Majingilani males, but I could stand corrected on that. As for why they don't head across and try and find some safety with them, it's actually very similar to what happened with the Sticks and the Nkuhumas. They didn't try and accompany the males when the males moved. They stayed in the areas that are familiar to them, or at least they stayed at the outskirts of areas that are familiar to them. So the sticks didn't go with the Matimbas, the Nkuhumas didn't go with the Matimbas. It's not the way that lions formulate or how they do work their lives. When there is a pride takeover, they don't follow males. They stay in the territories that they're in. And I suppose that makes sense because pride takeovers happen for a reason. They happen to prevent inbreeding, and so that the genetic line within the female stays fresh. So I would say that they're designed not to follow the males to new territories. When I have a moment, I will reposition, but for now we can just enjoy the journey of these lazy lions, or at the very least, maybe not lazy, Shab. I definitely can't call this lot lazy. I'd say exhausted and haunted might be a better description. But Cecilia, you were wondering, when it gets a little bit later, will they stand up and start roaring, or do they know to be quiet? And the answer is they definitely know to be quiet. I must say, since this pride takeover began, I actually don't think, and I'm not sure if the other presenters feel this way as well, but I feel like I haven't heard a female lioness roar in months. And that's because I think they're all trying to fly under the radar and are one of the males at the moment and not draw any attention to themselves. And it's only really once the things have settled down and are really safe and established once again, and that again could take months. We could find that the Birminghams are usurped by another set of males that we didn't even realize were on their way. But they won't be roaring until they feel settled and safe. Bearing in mind, of course, that right now, and they have had an encounter already, right now they are very much trespassing on Nkuhuma Pride territory land. So they don't want to attract the attention of the Nkuhumas really either. They've already apparently had one encounter with them. So no, Cecilia, they won't be talking tonight. They won't be shouting. The Birmingham boys might be, but that again depends on whether or not they decide it's time to go out and hunt those buffalo. The Birminghams were calling last night. I did hear them before I went to bed. So they're still being very vocal. But this group is not going to. I'm going to shift around so we get a change of scene. But before I do, one last thing. Chatting about how this young male, and he's been attached to a piece of knobthorn the entire time I've been here, and I've watched him roll over. It's been hooked in his tail, it's been hooked in his legs. You can have a look and see how vicious those thorns are. At one point it was hooked between his leg and his tail and stretching the skin on both sides, and yet he absolutely cannot be bothered to get up and move. So, you know, they're tough creatures. Very resilient things. Lisa, you're right. They do look hungry though. So I was hoping that buffalo herd actually might come their way. They really look like they could use a good meal. Definitely looking thin. And when that one young male stood up, it was clear that there was a bit of that flap that shows when their stomachs pull in on a really hungry lion. I'm going to shift around just so we can have a look at and I can show you that it isn't the male with the wound on his hip. And after that, we've clearly established which one it might be. Let's go round, loop back to the area that I was in. That the Matimba males have moved into Londolozi and the Birminghams have come in from the farm Birmingham. So we have a question that's very interesting from Through My Eyes Photography, which is the Twitter handle of the person concerned. Now you wanted to know, let's try and navigate this a little bit. You wanted to know how far a lion will go to establish a territory, so how far away they will move. To give you a rough idea, the Birmingham boys that you were watching with Scott are from a piece of land known as Birmingham. It's a farm called Birmingham. And I would say that is in a straight line, it's about 20 to 30 kilometers from where we are now and where they've established their territory. So the answer to that is, how far will they go? The answer is far. That was easily 20 to 30 kilometers. Could even be further if they find themselves not able to. Let's say the Birmingham boys had met with a Matimba resistance of 5 males rather than 2. Then they would have gone even further towards Londolozi and Mala Mala. And at the moment, they're even pushing into those areas. So up to 40 kilometers from where they originally came from. Females, on the other hand, will stick pretty much to where they know, unless it's a situation like we have here. And here's our young male that I wanted to just have a look at. He's also, if we have a look at his back, he's also got an injury there, and that is fresher than the one we were looking at on the other male. Pretty much in the same place as well. It seems to be the target area that male lions go for. It is quite often that we hear about male lions having their backs broken in fights with other males, and that's because they go for that area. You can imagine if they get them from that angle behind, it's away from the worst of the teeth and the claws that the animal can use to defend itself. And definitely no injury on that hip. So this is not, the missing male is definitely the one with the serious limp. Hello, gorgeous girl. She's definitely not a young lioness. Her nose is completely black. Her teeth are fairly yellowed and damaged when she does yawn or does show them. And we're looking at her, and I've mentioned that she's run away to keep her sub-adult sons safe, and that she will continue to stay away, or possibly continue to stay away, until her sub-adult sons are safe. And Gemma has asked the very salient question from that point is, how long can this lioness be away from her natal pride before returning? Because if she's got at least another year until these young males are independent of her, will they still accept her when she tries to return? Well, she's fortunate enough that if they don't, and I do think that generally this is the kind of scenario that results in a pride split. So quite often the lioness is away for too long. She doesn't get accepted in the same way. She might be tolerated, but not accepted completely back into the pride. But at least she does have this young female to form her own pride with. So the females will stick together once the young males leave, probably breed and reproduce. They could even start their own Salala sort of breakaway pride. And that's why we end up with these confused situations where we've got one breakaway and another breakaway. And sometimes the breakaways are bigger than the original pride. Over years it starts to level itself out. But Gemma, I think there is a chance that she won't be accepted back into her natal group, though she might move in the same area. Quite similar to what we have with the sticks. The sticks young to adult lionesses, the ones that had the cubs right when I started working here, they were always together, and then there were some older sticks females who were pretty much always separate from them. And I think a similar situation could happen here. Luckily she will have some company. I don't think that these lions are going to be up to too much, but so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them for now and then return to them as it starts to get a bit dark and a bit cooler. I want to go and see if there's any sign of that buffalo herd, if they're around this area, and if they show any signs of heading towards these lions, hoping they might provide about a bit cooler. I want to go and see if there's any sign of that buffalo herd, if they're around this area, and if they show any signs of heading towards these lions, hoping they might provide them with a good meal. Either way, I'm going to be returning to find out what they do tonight. They are very hungry. There's a very good chance they're going to come and hunt. Shame. Alright, so Jenny, Connie, Liz, Susan and Deb and lots of the viewers, thank you for letting us is gently blowing in this direction, so they might walk up into the wind towards us. Let's go see what we can find. Saw those injuries on the young male, and we have a question from Deonta from Long Beach. Please let me know if I'm getting your name right, because I don't think we've had a question, or I certainly haven't had a question from you before. So Deonta, you want to know, do I think that the way that they attack around the back lower spine, is that a way of inflicting injury or spinal injury on their victim? And the answer is yes, I do. When lions attack other lions, I think it's the best method of approach. As soon as they manage to get hold of that spine and break it, the fight is instantly won. And attacking from behind, of course, means that that other lion can't necessarily turn around and bite or fight back with its front paws or its teeth. And we've seen it happen with the way that lions kill their prey as well. I'm sure many of you have seen images of hunts, and I know that one drive that Brent did where we saw the kill from start to finish. One of the first things the lioness does, or sometimes male does, is to jump onto the back of the animal that they're trying to kill, especially if it's a big animal like a buffalo, and try and inflict injuries from that side because you're safe from the heads and the horns. The other area that lions generally go for, and it's nice to see at least for these two remaining young males, they've escaped that, is they quite often go for the groin. Particularly soft and vulnerable patch on a lion, and very difficult for them to defend if an injury is inflicted there. And of course there's lots of vital blood vessels. I think that the reports that came in
crash cuts. Well, I was just telling Jerry, who's not mic'd up or doesn't have comms, that we need to stand by for a crash cut. So welcome back. And we were just discussing the lion dynamics and buffalo hunting, and it's great to have Jerry on the team, and always wonderful to get to know some more people as the Safari Live crew continues growing. And we're expecting 35 people to be in camp over the Big Cat Week coming up, which is exciting stuff. The last one there were only 25 people, but still increasing drastically in numbers, which makes for exciting stuff and a little bit more stimulation out in these remote places. This is the same Inyala we saw earlier in Philemon's Dip, which is just down to our right. And this road that we're taking now is called Ingwe Alley, which was pioneered by the cameraman Wiem and myself a few months back. And it's kind of stuck, stood, carried on, stuck. Anyway, you know what I mean? It's now a more official road. And very happy memories of finding a young male leopard called Kunyuma on the Twin Dam side of Ingwe Alley. It's on the western side of this road. And it was actually the same day that we had cleared a pathway. There was no way to get from Philemon's Dip all the way to Twin Dams Road because there was too many fallen down trees and obstructions. But we found a few areas where we could clear pathways, and now you could go all the way through. And after checking it about 3 or 4 times that drive, we knew he was somewhere in this area but couldn't work out exactly where. It was about 10 minutes left of the safari, and VM suggested that we do one last turn down Ingwe Alley, and it was at that time that we approached. We were driving in a westerly direction towards the setting sun, and we saw his body silhouetted up on a marula tree. He was busy feeding on a duiker. Now, it's not hugely likely that we'll bump into him this afternoon. He's moved off now, him and his brother quarantined, but this time last year they were the most viewed leopard here at Djuma, the two brothers. They seem to have moved further south from here and are in good health, but sadly we don't see them as much as we used to. Chris in Arizona, and thanks for sending your question through to us. Chris is interested to know a little bit more about lions roaring and their vocalizations and what exactly they may mean and when they may use the different vocalizations. I like the way you're thinking, Chris. Hopefully the Birmingham males will roar for us tonight, but there's no guarantees that they will. Now, different vocalizations that lions will make will be the deep, regular roar of a lion, which is the noise that I was just making there as this Inyala runs off, terrified for its life after hearing "Stop the Lion." So, as I was saying, the regular communication of lion is a deep rumbling "ooh," which can be heard from about 5 miles away by the human ear on a still night. So it's very loud, and it's used to communicate with other males, other females, general communication, possibly even coalition members that are within the same coalition but that have just split up. So the regular lion's roar is communication. But then there will be growling, and that same roar used during battles, during high intensity moments. So I guess, one way of putting it is just the same as us as humans. We can speak to one another peacefully, lovingly, and we can also, using the same mode of communication, shout at one another in a fight or in times of hardship or times of passion. So the same audio can be used and interchanged in different scenarios, but it will mean different things depending on how that audio is pronounced. I don't know if that's making much sense, but All noises that animals make are quite simple. Us and monkeys and birds are to communicate with their own species, with other species. There's softer calls that lions will also let out, contact calls. Ooh. Ooh. Almost like a cough. But it's all for communication with one another. It's certainly not going to be to aid in catching prey. It's just going to alert prey that they're in the area. Afternoon to Gilly in Milwaukee, and happy to have you on safari with us. Gilly's interested in knowing how will those 5 Birmingham males determine who will be the lucky individual who gets to mate with a lioness who may fall in season, and they will fight amongst one another for those rights, just as they will fight amongst one another for the best spot on a carcass when feeding. It won't necessarily be every time a lady pops onto this scene, and you again can kind of equate this to humans. You may get a person who is doing well with the ladies, but only for a period of time until his younger brother also grows and develops and then begins to challenge him. But you'll probably find that an older brother will assert his dominance early on and ride that wave for a couple of months or years until the younger brother thinks, no, hang on, I think it's worth a rematch here to establish exactly who's boss. And every so often these lions will have altercations with one another when they are driven by hormones and testosterone and the scent of a female in estrus. So they certainly will be fighting. It's not going to be a democratic vote of whose turn it is, or this one hasn't had a chance for so long. Size and strength matters in nature, which is not the case with us as humans, unless you're a UFL football player, of course, then it could be useful. But most of the time it's brain power that gets us as humans into high positions. It's the opposite in nature. It's brawn, it's strength. So don't think of it as a democratic vote. That would not be the case. It's always going to be a fight to get those rights. The tree up to our left is a marula tree that harbors happy memories of where Kunuma was standing with his Indika kill. It was just up on this branch over here, where he was busy snacking on his Indika when we found him, and he was there even until the following morning. And some of you may remember a herd of elephants coming onto the scene and chasing him off, which was quite exciting. It's cooling down into a wonderful, wonderful evening. Strong breeze, and as the sun dips lower and lower, it becomes more pleasantly cool. There are also some clouds off to the western horizon, which are already helping diffuse the bright sunshine's warmth on us. Oh, sorry, Liam. Little bump on our road there. We need to get our road maintenance team out.
Right now.
So I think we should do at least one more large loop before getting back to the the Birmingham boys. And by covering as much ground as possible in the surrounding area, we at least have an idea if there's any prey around or if there's any other predators lurking about. It'll be wonderful to see a leopard again. I haven't seen one since I've been back from leave. got two viewers who are hoping for a sighting of some cheetah. Susan and Wolfgang from Sweden are both hoping to see cheetah. There were two male cheetahs seen on Torchwood this morning, which is the property to the east of us, but it was quite far east and they were heading straight south, not towards our property. That's not to say that they aren't here somewhere right now, and hopefully they will pop up and could pop up at any moment. But I would be lying if I said I felt confident that we would see them this afternoon. But who knows, maybe in the coming days they will venture back onto Djuma. In the whole year that I've been here, I've probably had, well, I have had 3 cheetah sightings in 1 year. So that gives you an idea of the frequency that we get to see them. It's not often at all. And I was chatting about it this morning for a number of reasons. The density of predators or of other predators and more apex predators, lion, leopard, and even hyena, are just too high here for cheetah to do well. The thick bush obviously doesn't help that fact, because it means that all these apex predators can... Here's a cuckoo. It's the first one I'm going to be able to show. Oh, it flew off, but Vims was very quick to the draw. They're generally not the most welcoming of birds, the cuckoos. Let's see if we can get a bit closer. There's a starling squawking up near us, and these cuckoos will... Oh, there it is there. We got it there, VM.
Negative.
Just go straight in. And on that little dead branch, nice. So, this looks to me like a Levaliance cuckoo. Yeah, it's a Levaliance. It was formerly known as a striped cuckoo, and as all cuckoos, it parasitizes other birds' nests. So it will go in, and while the hosts are away, it will lay its eggs, or at least one egg, within its nest. And cuckoo's eggs are very clever. They've got a short detonation period, so they'll hatch often very soon after being laid, and therefore will be the first chick to be fed by its foster parents, who in the case of this cuckoo will be the arrow-marked babbler. I think they parasitize strictly the arrow-marked babbler in this area. But what I'm going to do is just grab my book out and double check. I've got a bit rusty with my cuckoos, and I also just want to show you the other members of the cuckoo family that we will be able to see in the coming weeks. So top right, Levaliance cuckoo quite clearly has the striped underparts, so that's who we saw now. And I've just read quickly here, hosting only on babblers, making arrow-marked babbler its target in the park. We will also see the Jacobin cuckoo in this area, which is the one that's most easily confused with the Levaliance, but they are darker in coloration. But there's two different morphs. There's the pied morph and the black morph. The pied morph is difficult because in flight it's difficult to see whether it has stripes or not. Then Jamie's already seen a few great spotted cuckoos. The one below, the red-chested cuckoo, I heard yesterday when at Arethusa. Thick-billed cuckoo I haven't seen very many of here, but we might get lucky there. And I'm just going to flip over the page quickly, as there are many cuckoos about. The black cuckoo's been very vocal, and we may even hear it when we get back to the lions a bit later. I'm so sad, is how its call rings out. Then the common and African cuckoo are another two that are difficult to distinguish. They look identical. So top right and bottom left, you can see at a glance, look to be the same bird, but there are very slight differences. And then the classes and the Deirdricks are probably the most pretty and colorful of the cuckoos, with bright emerald green that glistens in the sunshine. However, they do cause hardship for many other birds, as clever as their nesting method is. Because their chicks are very often bigger than their host species, they will completely outcompete their host species chicks, and you'll find the foster parents end up raising a chick that doesn't even belong to their family and not raising one of their own offspring. So interesting stuff, but pretty hardcore to see, and maybe we'll even get to see an adult of a foster parent feeding an often much larger chick who is the hatchling of one of the cuckoos. So that's something to look forward to. Very happy to hear that Gaba has got a new bird for her bird list. And if you are joining for the first time, I'd strongly suggest you get a pen and paper, or even start a list on your phone or iPad or whatever you're using, and start documenting all the different birds you see out here. It's a great way to keep track of things, and naturally you're going to want to keep adding more birds to your list, and by wanting to add more birds to your list, you'll put more pressure on us to find you more birds, and then everyone's winning. So Gaba, let us know, how many birds are you on? And which of the cuckoos are missing off your list? There's going to be a lot of boxes to tick in the summer months. There's still some migratory birds on their way from different parts of Africa and maybe even further abroad. Love the clouds forming to the south of us. Maybe we can take you on a quick tour of what's going on up in the skies around us. Look at that. Beautiful. Not the regular kind of cumulonimbus rain clouds that can be, oh, earpiece has just popped out, that can be present in this supposedly wet season, which for now has been very dry. But certainly a lot more clouds seen in the summer skies, as it is technically our rainy season, compared to our winters, which are almost every day clear blue skies, which is, of course, it's wonderful because it can be quite cold and chilly, so the sun does a great job of warming us up in the summer months. But I really love the scenery that clouds bring to the African bush. Adds to the experience, I guess. This riverbed that we're about to drive through is the same riverbed that flows out of the Djuma waterhole, where we're going to be heading back to later to watch the Birmingham males, just to give you an idea of where we are. We're still in the central parts of Djuma, but just directly south of where those Birmingham male lions are still sleeping. Maybe darting up towards Buffelshoek Waterhole quickly. It's our biggest source of water at the moment, and no one's really checked around there this afternoon, so I want to check in there quickly and aim to get back to those lines in about 25 minutes to half an hour. If you're a bit later than that, it won't be a train smash, but I'd like to be there at around 6 o'clock. As that's when it's going to start cooling down, and they will be more likely to have their heads up, showing us how majestic they actually are. And more importantly, maybe they'll then get up and Like we chatted about earlier with Chris in Arizona, the likelihood of them possibly roaring is good. And if you haven't heard lions roar yet, when you're very close to them, it's something worth sticking around for, because it's an incredibly awesome thing to hear. They are so loud. This is a first for me. Usually this African harrier hawk flies off, and this is the first time that it's actually stayed on its nest. Now, I've been trying to achieve this shot since last year, once Brian and myself actually broke down here for a full 3 hours. So we didn't have an option of leaving, and the adults would not return to the nest during that whole 3-hour period. They flew all around the area, but never were comfortable enough with us. So maybe it's Jerry's calming presence on the back of the vehicle that's reassuring this African harrier hawk. Who knows? Now, this is one of the 2 adults, difficult to distinguish between male and female. And wouldn't it be fascinating to know whether they've got a chick in that nest? It's a kind of scraggly nest built of many twigs and the fork of this torchwood tree. And I'm just going to sit here quietly and patiently for as long as... Oh, there it goes. But you've got to start somewhere. And that was a good start to the habituation of the African harrier hawks. VM's doing a great job and staying with it as it flies through some low foliage. Awesome, what a pleasant surprise that was. Well done, Gerda, who's got 107 birds now that she's added the Lavalian's cuckoo to her list. A few others missing off your list are the classes and the Deirdric's cuckoos. Those we will definitely, be able to tick off, as well as the African emerald cuckoo. That's going to be a tricky one, but still possible. But the Deirdric's and classes are both here. I've heard them singing out, and just before I went on leave, actually, I did manage to get a Deirdric's cuckoo. I think it was a Deirdric's, or was it the classes? I got one of them before we went on leave. Let's take a look here. This is interesting. Really interesting stuff. How cool is that? It's a large rock monitor lizard. It's not the water monitor lizard, it's the cousin of the water monitor. And this one's been living in a cavity in this tree for all of the winter months. But what is interesting is that a few weeks ago I saw a lilac-breasted roller flying out of the same very hole that his head's in. Shame, boy, have you had a long day at the office? You look absolutely knackered. Very tired monitor lizard, just enjoying basking in those last few rays of sunshine. But maybe it managed to climb back into its hole with a lilac-breasted roller waiting as its meal. They are renowned for eating birds' eggs. The monitor lizards, they've got incredibly powerful smell, and also the ability to climb high up into trees and climb into the cavities that birds may be nesting in. Last year there was a woodlands kingfisher nesting in this hole, a bird that still hasn't returned from migration. We've just got another update from James Bear, who's got 217 birds on his list since last November. So well done, James. That might be a WildEarth Safari Live bird list record. Keep up the good work, and let's try and get you some more birds in the summer months. We're going to send you back to Jamie, who's got a surprise for you. Enjoy.
We do indeed have a surprise for you. Look who we found on our way to follow up on the buffalo. And we have a big thank you to say to Tebs, because I have to be honest, I was thinking about buffalo and I did not see her at all. How Tebs spotted her, I have no idea. She's flat, she's off the road, she's behind a fallen tree. We were going at not our normal safari speed. I'm very, very, very impressed. And look who it is, Sneaky Shadow. Hello, girl. Guess you didn't go very far after all. She's about 50 meters from where I lost her this morning. I guess she pulled a sneaky maneuver on me and ducked behind a tree, maybe. I don't know. Sat down in some bushes and promptly disappeared. She's looking very well and very happy, though. I wonder what it was that made her move. She was looking up when we saw her this morning, and then she moved into this block. Maybe she tried to hunt something, I don't know, but we did notice that she's looking quite well fed and full and very contented. Wow, that was seriously unexpected, and some really good luck this afternoon. Look at that. Now imagine we were even further away than this, and we were driving. Imagine spotting a leopard like that. If we didn't know exactly where she was, we wouldn't know that she was there. Impressive work from Tebs sitting at the back, providing an extra set of eyes for us all. It's quite I wouldn't say it's a thick block. It's just quite an awkward area, so I can't really reposition to change up, get any closer to her. She's kind of in a circle of fallen trees around us that have been pushed over by elephants, which has provided her with a nice little ring where we can't move any further, but that's okay, because we've got a nice clear view of her for now. I wonder what she's got planned for her evening. I did hear a report from one of the other guides that Tingana was calling. I wonder if she didn't hear him and start moving in that direction. Well, the one thing about leopards is that, as she's very clearly shown us, they go where they want to. We have a viewer from the Netherlands. Matty, you wanted to know if this area is fenced to keep the lions and the leopards in. The answer is yes, it is. It does have a border fence, but this area is absolutely enormous. It's 2 million hectares. The Kruger Park is 2 million hectares. We're sitting in the Sabi Sands, which is 60,000 hectares, but connected onto the Kruger without a fence in between them. And essentially this whole wildlife area, including the Kruger and the various private reserves around it, is almost close to 3 million hectares. That's 3 million soccer fields worth of land. It's an area that's bigger than the country Wales in terms of size. So although it does have fences, it is a truly wild area. It is absolutely enormous. Now the fence works fairly well for things like lions and elephants, and for the most part keeps them out of trouble. It doesn't always work for leopards. Leopards, you can't fence a leopard. If a leopard wants to hop over a fence, it's probably going to. It will find a way out around here. So leopards come and go, especially those with territories on the external borders. They do like to move around. So do cheetahs, a matter of interest. If they find a nicer area, they can dig under fences and disappear off. hyena do, warthog do, jackal do. And of course that makes the occasional situation where they have interactions with the human settlements outside of the park. There's quite a few villages on the outskirts. Every now and again you get photographs. The Kruger National Park has a gate at Phalaborwa, which is one of the big cities in this area. And every now and again you'll get photos of lions walking past the petrol station or the gas station. Elephants as well. That does happen. For the most part, a situation that's handled very well. But leopards like Shadow are incredibly adaptable creatures. The leopard you're looking at the moment is a true example of a purely wild creature. But there are examples of leopards that have been found living right in the center of cities, living in abandoned buildings, in big drainage pipes. They're fascinating creatures, leopards. They're animals that are very seldom seen, but probably I wouldn't say that they're common, but they're probably one of the most widely distributed mammals that we have in South Africa, stretching all the way from the mountains of Cape Town right up through the country. And each one is perfectly adapted for the environment that they live in. And this beautiful girl, for viewers joining us for the first time, her name is Shadow, and this is pretty much the core center of her territory. She moves along the eastern boundary of Arathusa right up into Simbambili and occasionally onto the western edge of Djuma. So she is a leopard that we see quite regularly and that we know well. And she is the daughter of the famous Karula, the leopard queen of Djuma. And Shadow is about 9 years old. And leopards are territorial. So each one has a distinct territory. Now we've been sitting with those lions and chatting a little bit about how pride dynamics and the fact that there was a takeover has disrupted everything. And bear in mind that that can happen with leopards as well. The borders of their territories can be fluid. So for example, when Shadow had Sindile with her, she moved further into Djuma to move away from the Anderson male, so a big male leopard that was off in the western edge of Djuma. So if we compare, western edge of Arathusa. So if we compare leopards and lions, although they have very distinctive social systems, they do face similar disruptions and similar problems within their lives. The difference is, of course, that they are solitary. Well, we really have had an extraordinary day so far, and it's about to get even more extraordinary because Scott has some elephants coming down to the dam. So let's head across to him for now.
Welcome back, everyone. Just getting into position here. This is going to be great. This herd of elephants just arrived, and look at all of them. They're going to come and drink here. The initial one that did arrive got a little bit worked off, and that's why it's running off at the moment. It could obviously smell the lions. Look at how beautiful this is. All lined up perfectly. Beautiful reflections in the water. All different shapes and sizes. Magical. Look at the baby trying to drink out of its mother's mouth there. I don't know if you saw that, the one on the second to the left. And after a hot and dry day like this, you can see they're really enjoying quenching their thirst. There's another big female who's just arrived at the back of the herd now. And great timing. We decided against going to Buffalo's Hook Waterhole. We got a bit waylaid with the African Harrier hawk sighting. And this waterhole thankfully produced the goods for us instead. Now the wind is blowing from the waterhole towards where the lions are, so even though the elephants will be able to smell that lions have been here, and that's why the young bull who arrived here first is on the far left of the screen shortly. There he is. He came in, had his ears out, head held high, and he ran off probably looking for these lions, looking to chase them away. But he headed off in the wrong direction. It's not uncommon for elephants to go off their intended pathway in order to chase lions away. But what may happen is he may even display his discomforts and unhappiness about these lions towards us and may come charging in at us. He's a young bull, so a little bit playful, so anything's possible. Let's see what he does. I'm guessing he is also going to come back and have another drink shortly, because he didn't have a sip. He ran off in search of these lions, I guess. Well, aren't we absolutely spoilt? Jamie's done a great job finding the shadow, the female leopard. We've been seeing lion already, and now this magical herd of elephants. Not a bad sunset safari so far, and the good news is there's still a lot more time left, and who knows what is going to happen in the next hour or so. As we were getting into position to view these elephants, we went racing past the lions, who were not showing any signs of life just yet. So we may have a little bit of a wait on our hands for them, but still very good prospects. Interestingly, I think the one's got a hole in its trunk. VM, if you stay on the one third from the left, watch when she drinks. Watch when she brings the water up to her mouth. Third from the right. So you see that? Keep watching third from the right, sorry VM, the one with the trunks kind of half wet, I guess they all are. It's this one there. You see that? Look at that. I'm not sure if there's a hole in her trunk or what's causing the water to spray out to the side like that. Maybe it's just a funny habit or technique that she's got. But watch closely again now. This is bizarre. Where's the water coming out of? I think it's just her technique. So I don't think she has a leak in her trunk. Let's see if she does it one more time for us. No. Look at her testing the water, trying to get the cleanest possible water. No. Tricky. Beautiful. Well, wasn't that absolutely beautiful and incredible sighting? And we just got a question through from Michael, wondering how much can an elephant lift with its trunk? I've never done any tests personally, but I would say quite easily 150 kilograms with absolute ease, 200 kilograms, so maybe around 400 pounds, 300 to 400 pounds without even flinching. I would say that would be easy for an elephant. They're incredibly large animals and incredibly powerful as well, but I don't have knowledge of any exact tests done. I don't know where I'm sure in some scenarios they would have done some kind of elephant weightlifting tests, but I have never read any of that research or documents, but I might be out there somewhere if somebody wants to scratch around and look for any interesting information regarding the weights elephants can lift with their trunk. That would be great. What I can tell you about an elephant's trunk is that it can house 20 liters of water within it, and it can be sucked up in probably 1.5 seconds. A big bucket full of water, empty into the trunk, and then blown into the mouth. 20 liters. So it's a hugely large amounts of water in a very short space of time. give you a quick update on exactly how sleepy the lions are, so that you guys know what's going on, and thereafter we will send you back to Jamie, who's waiting patiently with a female leopard, for those of you who may have just joined the safari. And there are 5 male lion in this general area, 2 off to our left, 2 off to our right. Quite interesting, there's a couple of impala that have just come in that are alarm calling at the sleepy lion just off to our left here. And let's see if we can't get to show you the impala alarm call. There we go. It's a nasal snort. And the wind is blowing in the direction of these young male impalas, so it's possible that they caught wind of the lion before they actually saw them, but the lion are lying out in the open. So, not sure whether they saw them or smelt them or possibly both. But they're moving off now to an area of safety, and now we can show you the sleepy lion to our right, which have not even lifted their heads in acknowledgement of the impala's alarm calls. There they are there. Oh, there was a bit of movement there. That's always a good sign. But generally, still comatose, but we're going to wait here, and as soon as they start showing some signs of life, we'll be sure to call you back. But for now, over to Jamie and enjoy the leopard sighting.
I did actually manage to find a sneaky way in, and the lions are lying down, and Shadow is also hasn't moved. She's looking quite sleepy. But we have been absolutely spoiled for choice this afternoon. Donna, you're right, it has been a really incredible day for cats. We've been so lucky. There's another guide or another vehicle approaching this sighting, so when he arrives I'll ask for a bit of an update as to where those buffalo are going. And maybe we can make some decisions then, because at the moment I feel like we're quite spoilt. I'm reluctant to leave our lovely leopard to go racing back to lions just yet, even as it does get cooler. Let's find out what those buffalo are doing first. And Lynn, you mentioned that Shadow might be waiting for Tingana to come out to play. Poor old Tingana, I imagine if that is the case, he's giving her a wide berth. He might be hiding somewhere, in desperation trying to recover and escape the attentions of the various leopardesses in this area. I think he's had quite enough for the time being. I know that the guides did say that they heard sounds of growling from this area this morning after we lost her. And I scoured this place. I don't know how she escaped me. So I've done quite a careful check around us to see if there's any sign of any male leopards, and I haven't seen any. Doesn't seem to be the case. But we joke, it would be about the right time for Shadow to start coming back into estrus again. If her mating with Tingana a couple of weeks ago was unsuccessful, then her body will almost immediately start coming back into estrus. So we saw her mating with Tingana a couple of months ago. Then he was mating with, let me try and remember this. He's got quite the list going on. Then he was mating with Kutila. Then he was mating with Karula. Then while I was, hold on. At some point he was mating with Shadow again. I've now got to the point where I actually can't keep track of Tingana's conquests and the order that they've happened in. Most recent, of course, was Karula. I know that because I was there a couple of days ago. And I think just before that, maybe a week or two before that, he was mating with Shadow. So she will be due to reunite with the males of this area in the next week or so, or the next 2 weeks. We'll see how she goes. For the moment, though, she seems to be quite enjoying the peace and serenity. Look at the belly. She's definitely eaten recently. She's not going hungry. Now, I've mentioned that she is the daughter of Karula. We've been watching over the last few days. And Sean, who's watching from Secunda, welcome back to watching our live safaris. Sean would like to know how old she is. Shadow is about 9, as far as I know. So she's quite a mature female, 9 years old. And she's been established. She was born fairly close to where we are now. She would have been born around Juma 9 years ago to Karula, and has established herself right next to her mother. Guys, please excuse me for one moment. I just need to respond to the radio. Yeah, standing by. Yeah, that's affirmative. You'll see me off the road. I think I've got your audio. Just guiding one of the other guides into the sighting. Sorry. Looking definitely like she needs some rest. She's had quite the nice afternoon. Very, very relaxed. Bear with me one moment. I just want to make sure that this vehicle gets in to a good view site. I think they should be fine. It's always important for us when we have and do work with other guides in this area to arrange with them and make sure that we get to share sightings and that their guests get to experience some of the magical things that we do. And it's very reciprocal. It's a give and take situation. We've got Sean coming in from Arathusa to join us. And I'm going to try and move up a little bit to give him some space. Let me just see if you... I think for now, let's head across to Scott so we can arrange the sighting, and I will catch up with you very, very soon.
So as you can see, at least one of the Birmingham males has started the process of waking up, getting ready for a night out, hunting, patrolling his territory. And it always starts with grooming and yawning. So be sure you're ready to take some screenshots. He's been yawning once or twice already, and I'm sure he's going to yawn again. As you can see, his companion is not looking as eager to start this evening's affairs. And isn't that absolutely awesome? Not a worry in the world right now, and deep in a slumber, even though we're just a few meters away, not concerned by our presence at all. And his tongue's almost even sticking out. There's a few flies crawling around his lips and teeth, and even that's not bothering him. Wonderful. Oh, I've just noticed one of the other males behind us is also up. Now this one's getting up. I'm just going to swivel the vehicle ever so slightly so VM has the opportunity to be able to film all of them. That should work. And perfect timing. He was just playing with one of those balls of elephant dung that you saw tumble as he walked past. Look at this. I'm hoping he's going to come and say hello to some of his coalition members. Apologies, I just couldn't resist firing off a few pictures there. Look at this. Right in front of us, just in front of the vehicle. Again, unperturbed by our presence. He skipped the first two. It looks like he's not interested in saying hello just yet, but rather relieving himself with a quick toilet break. You'll notice how they urinate on their feet, which will help leave a trail of scent as they walk around. So if and when they do lose other coalition members, they will be able to reunite with them. Oh, bless you. You may have seen all this snot come flying out of his nose there. He obviously needed that quite badly. Oh, and it's all happening here. And now I'm guessing he's going to go and possibly say hello. No, he just wanted to get a little bit closer to the action, and this behavior is not uncommon for them to flop back down after moving a short distance. It's kind of like us waking up in the morning. It takes some time to get into full swing of things. Okay, there's just been an update that Tingana male leopard has crossed onto Djuma, so I'm just going to make sure I let the other vehicles here know. We're probably not going to be heading there. Ephraim's also just giving an update. There's some monkeys alarm calling nearby to where we are here, so who knows what it is, possibly a leopard, just upstream from the Djuma waterhole. So a lot of action and predators obviously in the area. Now I'm going to give that report now that the game drive channel's cleared. Station's report of Tingana crossing into Vuyatela from 1 Eye Pan. So, are you going to let off another big yawn for us? They're all in immaculate condition. All of their teeth are still in perfect working order. This will change. And over the coming weeks and months, they are going to probably grow a little bit more in terms of their main size, but their scars and dentition is going to start taking a hammering as they get into fights and start continuing to take down large prey. Oh, he's found himself an elephant ball pillow for his paw there. Quite a popular comfort accessory amongst the male lions out here in Africa. One earlier was also playing with one. Perfect little paw rest or pillow. We've also seen Mvula, a male leopard, using one as a pillow before. I really do wonder where the lioness that was with him this morning is headed off to. She was last seen heading in a westerly direction at about 10:30 this morning. And on the topic of lioness and these coalition members, Laura from Mississippi would like to know, have these males already chosen a pride of lioness that they are going to take care of and mate with? And not just yet, they haven't got any one in specific. And they won't only have one. It's uncommon for coalitions of male lions to only look after one pride of lions, and it's more common that they'll have 3 or 4 or even 5 prides within their massive territory. No different to that of a male leopard, who will again have maybe 4 or 5 females in his territory, depending on how popular, or how, rather than popular, how successful he is or any coalition is. And that's important to remember. It's kind of a misunderstanding that a lot of people have. I guess the Lion King could be a contributing reason for this, and that is that one pride will not just have one male who's there day in and day out to protect them. he will come and go when it suits him. When there's a female in season, he will come in and mate with her. When there's easy meals and free food, he'll come in and claim those meals. And every now and then, he will check in on the pride. But it doesn't make sense for him to be stuck with the pride permanently. His territory is larger than theirs, and needs to go off and patrol and do man things, making sure that the ladies have time to look after their cubs while he goes off and makes sure no intruders come into the general area, other males that will kill his cubs if he's not careful. Good question though, Laura, and look at the beautiful clouds out to the west. I'm glad VM's taken this opportunity to take you up into the sky. A magical, magical evening. The wind has died down quite considerably, and only a very, very gentle breeze is blowing now. Now, just to keep everyone updated, I know we did mention earlier on the radio that Tingana was seen heading on to Djuma. Sadly, there's so much going on today that he is not going to be visited by us. But on the updates of leopards, Karula apparently has also been found quite far to our east on Torchwood, on the next major riverbed called the Mulwanini. It goes the Mulwati, then Mulwanini. She's about 1 kilometer east of our boundary, heading straight south, and maybe she'll return onto Djuma tonight. She's an interesting leopard that, and is moving huge distances in kind of an irregular pattern. We're not really working out where she moves and where she likes to stay. Her territory keeps shifting. She keeps spending time in weird places, but that's the life of a leopard. It's an interesting one, and we're going to try and follow it as closely as possible. And I just thought you'd like to know that she's all the way over there. The male that she was last seen mating with Tingana has just come into Djuma. Not sure what he's planning to do. Again, probably just checking his territory, which has been fairly newly acquired, and he's chased Mvula, another male, further east to kind of where Karula is now. And maybe what Karula's been doing is she's been wanting to mate with Tingana as well as Mvula, so that they both feel that they may be the father of her next litter of cubs. Although at the rate she's going, I'm not sure if she is going to have any more cubs. I'm not sure whose fault it is, whether it's the males who are not doing the job effectively, or whether she is no longer capable of conceiving. She's been seen mating on a number of occasions with several different males and just can't seem to fall pregnant. So that's going to be an interesting one to monitor. Speaking of leopards though, let's send you over to one with Jamie, and we'll stay here with these lions and be sure to call you back if they start moving.
So chatting a little bit about Karula, of course we are still with her daughter, who's looking very happy. And I wonder if Karula really is heading off to seek out mating opportunities with Mvula. Now, Shadow, as far as we can tell, is still very settled here and looking quite relaxed. It seems as though Tingana has crossed into Djuma around the northern section, around Simbambili. So she definitely isn't waiting for Tingana. I think he's escaped the attention of this particular feline for now. She's definitely looking very comfortable. There are other vehicles here, as I mentioned. You can see how incredibly relaxed she is. Now then, the fact that Karula is in Torchwood means that she covered probably a distance of, she was last seen crossing into Simbambili, maybe looking for Tingana, I don't know. But she was last seen crossing into Simbambili yesterday afternoon, which means she's moved, I don't know, about 7, 8, 9 kilometers, depending on where she is in Torchwood at the moment. Now, earlier we were asked a question about how far lions will go to seek out new territories. And just to carry on that conversation, since we have been comparing a little bit the leopards and lions that we're seeing, there's a bit of similarity in the fact that the reason Shadow is where she is because females generally, not always, but generally, establish themselves in territories quite close to their mothers, so quite close to the area that they're born in. very similar to the way that the prides work. They stick around in sort of female-dominated home ranges. But for males, when it does get to the point where they need to disperse, both in male lions and in male leopards, they do often have to cover serious distances. And I know that apparently the furthest a male leopard has ever dispersed away from where he was born was to go from somewhere in the sort of middle of Natal province in South Africa, and into the Kruger National Park. That's a distance of probably about 600 kilometers. It's not unheard of. So I know when I spent my leave in the Kruger, one of the viewers, I think it was Raisa, you asked if I had a close look at the leopards that we saw there, and we were a good 100 to 150 kilometers away from where we are now, and you asked me to look around for Karula's sons, and I did say it at the time, it's not impossible. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. So just like the Birmingham boys covering quite a fair distance to establish their own territories, male leopards do have to move quite similar distances. Now, the way that she'll work for new viewers is she will have her own distinct territory. So Shadow will have her own distinct territory, and her mother will have a distinct territory. Because they're mother and daughter, they might every now and again meet up, but they won't socialize in any way. There might even be a little bit of growling, a little bit of aggression, but no real physical contact. So her mother will almost divide up her territory, allow her daughters to move around on the outskirts. And then what will happen is within the various females, so Shadow's territory borders with her mother on that side, and then a leopard known as Quatile as well in this area, and then Salaeshe off to the west. Their territories will be overlapped with those of a male. So leopards are only territorial to animals of the same sex, so to leopards of the same sex. So females will defend their territory from other females, males from other males. But the male's territory will include the territories of various females. And of course, with that degree of overlap, as Scott mentioned, females seek out mating opportunities from more than one male to make sure that they get the highest possible chance for their cub survival rate. I'm going to provide Tebs with a little bit of light now. Oops, that's the wrong light. Here we go. Just to provide a little bit of extra. We're right at the dusk time of the evening. It is starting to get a little bit dark, nice and cool, and it's time for them to head out. As I said, Tingana's just moved across into Djuma, and I said earlier that I have not been able to keep track anymore of Tingana's conquests, and Khada, you suggested that maybe we should call Tingana the Casanova of the cat world. He's certainly done very well. What was the other name I thought of earlier? Oh, I can't remember. I'll get back to you on that. I had a thought pop into my head, but it disappeared. Tingana has certainly had some interesting times with the various females. I'm not sure what the Anderson male is up to. I haven't heard much about him, and I've actually never seen him. I've only heard about him. He is a very, very large male that is off to the west of the territory. Hello, beautiful eyes. Sean, there's apparently lions at Arathusa Dam. I don't know if that's been called in on the radio. One of the viewers has just picked it up on the damn camera.
I'm gonna go look.
Can you go over quiz? Cool. Enjoy.
No, good, thanks.
No worries. I hope it's
a lion.
Yeah, me too. Oh, exciting stuff. There's just lions everywhere. Now, Sean's going to race off to follow up on those lions. He's already left the sighting. He's heading off already. I will pass on the message. Thank you for the comments from all of you guys. Yeah, Sean, apparently close to the dam wall. Alrighty, well done everybody. The viewers pointing things out at the Arathusa Dam. Now I'm as curious as you are as to find out who those lions are, but I'm going to let Sean head across in that direction and find out for us, since we do have this fantastic sighting with Shadow. We've been really spoiled for choice in terms of lions. It's been incredible. Lions, leopards, we've just had a really lucky few days. We really, really have. I'm going to let Sean head across. What I might do, grab my spotlight here, is to provide a little bit of extra light that we can watch Shadow. What I'm going to do for the moment is essentially just bounce it off the ground. So rather than shining it directly at her, there's a technique where you just place it slightly underneath the animal to try and get the edge rays to illuminate them. Now for predators like Shadow, it's absolutely fine to use a spotlight on them. What's up, Shadow? She's heard something. Where is she going to go? Try stay with her. Feet disappearing off. Alright, let's find out where Shadow's off to. Bear with me a moment as I slide out of here. She just went to lie down in a different spot. Just to give you guys a bit of warning, there's a chance I might lose you briefly, but never fear, I'll be back up and running very quickly. We just have a bit of a tricky signal area where Shadow's decided to settle down. Just while I'm repositioning and while I have the opportunity to chat to you all, please don't forget that tomorrow morning we will be starting our safari half an hour earlier. So that is 5 o'clock Central African time, which makes it... Oh, sorry, let's hear if we can get an update from Sean. Hold on 1 second, we'll have a look at Shadow while I do this. Yeah, standing by. Sean, just stand by. I'll try and get an update from them. Now, guys, Sean is at the dam, but he's not seeing any lions. He was wondering if there's any kind of direction that you can give him. Okay. Well done. It seems as though it's that lioness that possibly that we saw around Juma, moving away from the Birmingham boys. Yeah, Sean, apparently she might have been given a bit of a...
You can have... Welcome back, everyone. And I was just joking around with these lions, saying that if they killed the buffalo for us now, we would get them extensions for their manes, and that they could have dreadlocks or long blonde hair or anything that they like. So that's, I think, what you caught the end of. And as you can see, nothing has really changed here. If anything, the lions have got less active than they were before. Sorry that you've lost Jamie. She's going through a tricky signal area, but hopefully it won't be long before she recovers, and, well, her signal recovers, and you'll hopefully be taken back to Karula. Shadow. Now, I've just heard a few birds calling, some that we spoke about a little bit earlier, the red-chested cuckoo. It could well call again, so I'm just going to whistle out its call so that you're ready to know what to listen for. There it goes. Pete Mayfro is what it's saying, which means call my wife in Afrikaans. And I did also hear the faint, there's a Franklin calling now, I did also hear the faint call of the black cuckoo a little bit earlier. But for now, there's almost a little bit of a lull in activity, I guess, a kind of calm before the nocturnal storm, which is a scary time for a lot of the animals out here. Thankfully, for a lot of the prey species, the heavy wind that's been blowing the whole day has died down, and that bodes very well for them. It's going to be a lot more tricky for the predators to creep up on them without any ambient noise of wind helping them. Now, in situations like this, we need to express patience and the hope that these lions will actually get up and start doing something, or at least one stretching out there a little bit before the end of the show. There's nothing we can do to excite them. Well, I guess there's a lot of things we could do to excite them, but that wouldn't be right. So we're not going to do anything. We're just going to sit here and think happy thoughts about these lions getting up and active. Failing that, we may have to hope for some prey to potentially come onto the scene, and that may also change their attitude. But we've driven around this whole general area, haven't seen too much prey that is going to be suitable for them. They're really only going to focus on bringing down large prey like the Cape buffalo, possibly kudu and waterbuck, but mainly buffalo is going to be what they're after. Oh, looking slightly promising. The one straight ahead of us just let off a yawn. And we just need one of them, the most dominant one, to get up and start moving, and the rest should follow suit. Not always, though. Where has the fifth male gone? I'm thinking of just repositioning the vehicle. I can't see him from the spot where we are. I know he is still there, but let's just go for a quick drive there. Keep an eye on him, just to mix up the scenery a little bit. The reason why I couldn't see him was because he's so flat to the ground, he's blending in with the grass. Lisa would like to know if there's any chance that these lions could smell the Solala pride. And it's highly unlikely from where they are now to be able to smell the Solala pride, which are probably a mile away as the crow flies. And if they did smell anything of interest to them, we would be clearly kept in the loop of that. And they would be holding their heads up into the wind, almost breathing in the air or drinking in the air that they want to smell. And they'll do that for buffalo and other lion, even leopard. Any scents that excite them, you'll clearly know when something is testing the wind, and at the moment all they're testing is the back of their eyelids, nothing else. There's a strong chance also, if they did have wind of other lions, they would be very excited and not just lying here sleeping. Bearing in mind that there are two young males that within the Salala Pride that these males will kill if they get a hold of them, and have potentially already killed one. Now, it's just rumors on the Bush Telegraph. There was no conclusive sighting, but I think tracks indicated that these 5 males did come across the Salala Pride of 5, and now, as you saw earlier with Jamie, it's the Salala Pride of 4. There's a chance that that one young male did merely get separated from the pride, but there's also an equal chance that he is now dead. I wonder which lions you guys found at the Arathusa waterhole, those of you who are watching the live camera over there. And great job. I'm told that Sean, one of the Arathusa guides, did race off to the waterhole and relocate that lion, and without your help he wouldn't have had that, so I'm sure he's also hugely grateful. So, sleepy lions. I would hate to know how many hours of my life I've spent with sleeping lions, because that, in comparison to the time spent with them on the move, would be horrifying, I think. But the good news is you guys don't have to sit here with the sleeping lions anymore, and you're heading back to Shadow. Enjoy.
Well, at the moment we're sitting with a sleepy leopard too. She briefly got up, as you'll remember, before I lost you to the gremlins, or you lost me to the gremlins. But she settled down pretty much about 10 meters away from where she was originally. And there's a couple of buffalo moving around the area, so if you see her perk her ears up and look around, that's what she's looking at. But beyond that, I really don't think that she's going to be up to too much, apart from twitching ears to chase away the flies, which are still plaguing her. Every now and again you can see one fluttering around. And that beautiful, agile body of hers. Such a graceful creature. I actually really like looking at them from this view as well. It's because you get that real tan impression, the darker tan along the top of their back. It's amazing to think how effective just the idea of putting spots on an outline can be. And I know that all of our regular viewers will have experienced how well that camouflage works. It just breaks up that outline and makes them disappear. They look like they could vanish into a patch of grass, and they really could. It's always an interesting experience walking when you accidentally find a leopard. And all of a sudden they are really much closer than you ever expected to be. It's because you didn't spot them. It happened to me. I was actually reminded of this situation. And before I go into the story, well done everybody. Thank you for your update about the lioness. I'm not going to go there because the Arathusa guides have been deprived of lions all day, and there's quite a queue already to go and see that female lioness. But Sean did find her, and that's entirely, actually, thanks to you guys. Very well done. Now, I know that Joanne and Gada, you were wondering if it was the same lioness from this morning. Now, I'm sure that Scott gave you that update that we saw her crossing quarantine. That's actually really difficult to say, crossing quarantine. Crossing quarantine at about 11 o'clock this morning, and she was heading in this direction, so you thought maybe it could be her. I agree with you. I think that there's a distinct possibility. As to who she is, I honestly have no idea. I only saw her briefly as she moved across the clearing, and I genuinely don't know who it might be. It could be part of the Sticks or part of the Ngumas or another member of another pride. I really, really don't know. but I think there's a distinct possibility that it's the same female that we've been seeing. Now, Shadow, you suggested that maybe it was the tailless lioness. I'm going to just get hold of Sean on the radio in a moment and just ask him, because my plan now was actually to head straight back towards the Salalas because of that herd of buffalo in the area. I thought I might go and see what they were up to, because Shadow, I don't think, is going to be up to too much just yet. Now, bear with me one moment as I get hold of Sean. Sean for Jamie. Sean, I was just wondering if you could ID that lioness. One of the viewers thought she might be missing a tail. Okay, I think I copied that. Thanks, Sean. Enjoy. Alrighty, so she does have a tail. Sean's not sure who she is. Now, I know that we've spent some quality time with Shadow, and I really, for the last few moments of our sunset safari, I really want to head across to the Salalas and just see. We're taking a chance, but there are so many buffalo in this area. There's a big buffalo herd at Arathusa that's headed towards the north, and there's also a big buffalo herd at Red Dam, which is very close to where the Salalas are. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to say goodbye to Shadow for now, and we're going to head back across in that direction. Now bear with me one moment as we escape out of this block, and then we're going to do almost a Ferrari safari to get there, to find out what they're up to. But thank you, Shadow, for a wonderful afternoon, well spent. It is good to see you. Even if you did give me the slip this morning, in a very cunning way. We'll say goodbye to you for now. Have a good evening, girl. Alrighty, let's hit the road and try and get there. We're going to have to move fairly fast, but you can race along with me. But I know that when I do move in this area, there's a chance that I could disappear. So while I race to the Salalas, we'll head back across to Scott, and I will catch up with you in the future.
Well, what a safari it's been. Leopards and lions, amongst other stars of the African wilderness, spotted in between. Not looking promising though. We're going to race you back to Jamie. Apologies, I didn't copy the message very clearly. I'm told there's a herd of elephants approaching the waterhole, and I can vaguely make one out in the dark. I don't think you'll be able to see them with the camera from here, and it's a bit dark for elephant viewing, but they are there. You can hear the black cuckoo now. Very faintly, but I think you can hear it. And hopefully it won't be long before we can get one in the camera for you. I'm sure a lot of you will want to add it to the bird lists. Good signs now. Grooming's always good, and they've done their kind of initial groom and yawning session, and this may be the second and final one before they start marching off. I wonder where they're going to go. No way of telling. They're kind of in the core of their new home now. They've been spending time north, south, east and west of this position. The fact that they came from the west means they may want to head towards the east and check that area to make sure there's no intruders. Somebody's just calling me over the radio for an update, so I'm just going to chat to them quickly. Go ahead. Just myself here. I think Aubrey's making his way as a second. They're still lying up same place. And there's also the red-chested cuckoo calling. So listen out for that. Well, this morning we were discussing the woodlands kingfisher, another bird who's got a beautiful call that we should be hearing shortly. And a few people took guesses as to when it is going to arrive. Apparently, according to Brent, excuse me, they arrived on the 12th of November last year. So that's something you can work off. And Joanne's just sent through her comments guessing that the first one's going to arrive on the 13th of November this year, and that the first impala will be born, I've forgotten that date, I think early December, the 26th of November. So thanks, Joanne, for your forecasts. I'm not sure if any of you are in your kind of safari groups may want to start up a friendly betting system. It would be impossible for us to do it with everyone, but maybe if you split up into small groups, you'll be able to have some competitions amongst yourselves as to when the first woodlands kingfisher will arrive, and Joanne's next suggestion as to guess the age or the dates is when the impalas will first start giving birth. So that's something I'm looking forward to. They're incredibly cute impala lambs. You do have to ready yourself to see a lot of them being killed, sadly. They provide a lot of food for lions, leopards. The wild dog pack that's running around here are going to have a great time feeding on them and will possibly kill 4 or 5 in one sitting. So be warned, that is going to happen. Pythons also managed to get caught in on that action, but they are really cute, along with a lot of the other small animals that are born. The wildebeest, zebra, a lot of new additions we can expect to see. But I will warn you in advance that sadly a lot of them will not make it. So we've got movement from 1 out of 5, better than nothing. Enough. Now there was a female who was with this coalition this morning. I'm not entirely sure who she was, possibly a member of the Styx Pride, but nobody could confirm that for us. And we're also not sure where she's headed off to. At about 10:30 this morning, she was seen having a drink at the Arathusa waterhole, and there has been no sign of her here on Juma yet this afternoon. Who knows, possibly she's the lioness that popped up at the Arathusa waterhole. Anything is possible. And that lioness that you guys did spot earlier is apparently in view in the Arathusa waterhole camera. She's walking around contact calling, obviously looking for other members of her pride, whichever pride it is. Well, happy to hear that Michael's also equally wanting these lions to get active as I am, and I'm sure a lot of you are, and is asking a hypothetical question, one of course that we would never do, but if we did throw a ball into these male lions, would they play around with it like a domestic house cat? And possibly, but I'm guessing that they wouldn't. If we threw some kind of being that wiggled and wobbled around, that would get their attention, and that may well get them playing. Or if that ball had a string on it and we jiggled it around, it may trigger them to chase after it, but I don't think it's likely that it would provide any entertainment for us, and of course we would not want to interfere in their day. That's one of the things we pride ourselves on out here, is trying to have as little impact as possible on these animals' lives and simply be in a position to share what they do with all of you. And I mean, it's bizarre, even not too long ago, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we found these lions early in the morning. It was maybe 15 minutes to the start of drive, so still cool, not hot, and found them fast asleep. And I said, all that we can hope for now is that some buffalo arrive onto the scene, and that should get them up and moving. They weren't very full-bellied. 15 minutes later, you wouldn't believe it, but the buffalo arrived, and I thought, well, here we go. The lions are going to wake up and start hunting these buffalo. And it turned out that the lions did wake up. They looked at the buffalo. They didn't move a muscle. The buffalo looked at the lions for quite some time, slowly walked away, and the lions went back to sleep. So they've got a mind of their own, and rightfully so. Now, the contact calls that the lioness at Arethusa is calling out is certainly not audible to these lions over here, Sandra. And like I said earlier, if animals smell or hear something, they will make it clearly obvious to us, and they'll all hold their heads up in that direction and be holding their head, ears cocked in a certain direction, kind of like what the one individual is doing now, but with more intent. And it's about 2.5 miles away, I would say, from here to the Arethusa waterhole, which is very far for them to be able to hear a soft contact call. And I guess that is the whole point and reason why they use these contact calls. It's a safer way of trying to communicate with the lions that you are only looking for, as opposed to putting out a massive broadcast, which would be a loud, regular roar. And a lone lioness will certainly be in a situation where she would like to use her sense of smell and knowledge of her pride to get into the general area where she's hoping to find them, and only then let out the soft contact calls, hoping that no other lions hear her. Well, good evening again, Vernie. And Vernie's just mention that because there wasn't a conclusive battle between these 5 males and the 2 Matimba males, would these 5 males stand their ground if the Matimba males returned? And Vernie, again, it's very important not to assume that they did not have a battle. Simply that we were not there to see it, or anybody was there to see it, doesn't mean that nothing serious did go down. That would be a big mistake. Obviously something serious has happened, because the 2 old Matimba males have left their home that they used to live in for many, many years without returning. So these 5 males must have done something, whatever it was, to scare those Matimba males and cause them to leave and never come back. What that was, we will never be sure of, but something, of course, did happen. And at this stage, it's very safe to assume that the 5 males that we are with now are dominant over the Birmingham male, over the Matimba males. Oh, hello, Evan in North Carolina. And you are wondering where Scrapper is. Scrapper's just off to our left. It's not going to be easy to tell that it is him, but he is lying up just off to our left with his face facing away from us. VM's going to give you a quick show of where he is. There he is, there. Not much to see. You can't even really tell that it is Scrapper from this angle, even though he is easy to distinguish from the other males. Well, interestingly enough, Jamie has moved back into the last position of the 4 Salala members. Another pride of lion, 2 lioness and 2 young males that were found earlier on this afternoon, and they have moved off. So we've chosen the wrong lions to hang around with. It would have been better to be with those 4 and at least get to see some lions on the move, but that's safari. It's always a gamble, and I wonder where they've gone. She is going to continue searching for them, and maybe she'll bump into them. I hope she does, because nothing better than seeing lions on the move. But for now, we're going to stay here with these guys and hope that they do something before the end of the safari. Well, hello to Dean in North Carolina, and good to have you on board. I'm not too sure, Dean, what would happen if the 1 lioness that was with this pride bumped into the 4 members of the Salala pride. There are just so many variables that it would be impossible to make a conclusive and educated guess as to what would happen. It's basically one of 2 things. Either she would try and attack them, or she would run away. And so the same goes for the other pride. Now, we can obviously read into it quite basically, in that it would be 4 against 1, so I'd be inclined to think that the Salala pride would be dominant over 1 single lioness. But even still, you just never know what's going to happen out here. There's likely outcomes, but those are fairly self-explanatory. 4 against 1, you would assume that the 4 are going to be stronger. But again, the only way to find out all these questions about what would happen if this lion met that lion is to wait and see when it happens, really, because it doesn't matter which guide you are talking to in Africa, nobody's going to know the correct answer. But nice to try and work out what may happen, but only the lions will know, and even them, if we could communicate them, wouldn't be able to forecast that. I guess it's kind of like saying who is going to win a boxing match, this fighter or that fighter. There's going to be various views and opinions, but until the clash actually happens, nobody knows who's going to win. Oh, well, we've got a very kind comment and offer from Matty, who's watching in the Netherlands, and he said he's going to be working the late night shift for us this evening, making sure that any of the waterhole cameras don't come across any lions or leopards. So thanks for that, Matty. It really does help to have a team of people behind us helping with information and updates, and nothing better than waking up early in the morning and getting a report from the girls in final control that you guys have spotted something interesting at any of the water holes. So thank you very much, Matty, and I hope you get lucky and something interesting does happen at the water hole. African scopsals are beginning to call. So a quick reminder for those of you who have just joined in and haven't heard the updated safari times. Tomorrow morning we will be going out half an hour earlier, 5 o'clock Central Africa time, but the afternoon game drive is going to remain the same time. So no changes in the afternoon, half an hour earlier in the morning, and we're really looking forward to getting out at first light. It gives us half an hour of cooler weather in the morning where it's more likely that we will find predators and other animals on the move, and it's definitely going to make a positive impact on the safari experience. I hope it doesn't make too much of an impact on you guys joining in, but I'm sure you'll bend and weave and make it happen. Huge thanks to VM on camera today, as well as Nikki and Tara in the final control room, and of course all of you guys. Thanks for joining, Jerry, and we'll see you all next time.
Unfortunately, I flipped a bit of a coin to try and get back to the salon. North of where they were, and I've been trying to follow up and relocate, but unfortunately no luck at the moment. Not sure where their sneaky cats disappeared off to, but still an incredible day to have spent time with the Salala and as well as all the others. But thank you as well as Tibbs for his great spotting, and to Nikki and Tara NFC. Guys, don't forget to join us half an hour earlier tomorrow morning. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and we will catch up with you then. Bye-bye for now.